Hello everyone and welcome back to the Twitch TV Lounge. I'm Richard Lewis and we're here at DreamHack Winter, the 20th anniversary of it in fact. And I'm going to interview somebody who I've been wanting to interview for I don't know, so long, right?
Well, yeah.
We've been flirting with each other for ages. You can tell just by looking at the suit, even if his face was blurred out who it is. It is Bruno Carlucci, the legend from Dota. So,
how's it going, man?
I'm doing good. You, again, I wanted to do you in your Batman suit yesterday,
right, yeah.
but I think this might be better for the purposes of the TV.
It is very adequate, right?
Yeah.
I'm on TV, I hope I'm not screwing with the camera, but if I am, well, that's my style, right?
Yeah, indeed. So, look, first of all, how have things been for you personally lately? You seem to be a very busy man these days.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy because I still get people tweeting at me, like, oh, you're so lazy, you're not doing so much content, right? Because,
really?
well, no, it's like the perception of people that if you're not doing content, you're not working.
Wow.
But no, actually, we've been doing so much, and it's really cool. It's really exciting times. I'm a workaholic, confessed. To me, the moments where you're doing a lot of stuff are the best. I've been working a lot of stuff with DreamHack, with the DreamLeague, of course. We're doing some stuff with Twitch as well. Like working recently, we did a double travel tournament, which was a weekend kind of thing that was really fun. We're planning a lot of things for next year. We're helping other leagues as well, and I've also been traveling around. I've been to Star Ladder. I'm also going to be a LAN in the future that I cannot say yet because it's a surprise. But I guess people can figure out now because I said it. But yeah, no, it's just like, it's a lot of traveling, it's a lot of planning, it's a lot of business talk. And I can't wait until all that comes together and then we can do some cool stuff as well.
I mean, do you miss being more content focused over being, this kind of slick businessman type behind the scenes at the moment?
I think there's a balance in everything. I am a person that I get really bored if I do the same thing over and over. So it's good to keep things fresh. So when you do a lot of content, and let's say you're in camera a lot, you start getting tired and not bored, it's just like you lose the energy.
Yeah.
And you kind of want to go back to do something like, okay, let's go to do something more 1v1 or organize stuff, plan stuff, build. And me and James were also on the belief that two things. First of all, less is more. So it's better to do just like not that much stuff, but when you do something that it has to be memorable. And also the fact that if you want to do something good, you have to give it time. You can't just pop out every week with something that's amazing because even if you were able to pull something amazing every week, you will set the standard amazing, and then 3 weeks in, people will be like, oh yeah, it's amazing again, cool. Yeah. I call that Wednesday.
Yeah, exactly. Amazing gets average.
Yeah.
So you've got to keep raising the bar.
Yeah. So it's like it's all about understanding how the community works and what they want to see and what they want to hear, and what the people around you want to do as well. So for example, when you run a tournament, sometimes tournament organizers have this top-down mentality of we please the sponsors, then we please the organizations, then we please the player, then we please the community, and sometimes it's the whole way other around. When you do a tournament or something like that, we figure like, how can we make the players have the best time when they're here, right? How we can have the community just enjoy what they're watching. And that's what we think of a lot of the time.
Well, look, recently, and this is my forte because I'm a sleazy journalist.
Right.
You've been.
Let me get prepared.
Here we go. Yeah, adopt the pose, sensible pose. No, but I mean, you've found yourself kind of embroiled in a little bit of drama in the Dota scene with the whole, DreamLeague thing and how that kind of went. I was really surprised because I've seen, in particular yourselves, but also DreamHack. Always been such big supporters of the the Dota scene, lots of investment and the right talent for it, and then it just seemed to just blow up like that, and lots of negativity aimed at you guys, and it kind of seemed to me as an esports veteran perhaps a little bit misplaced, a little bit overblown. What do you think? Okay,
so here's the thing. While it was maybe overblown out of proportion, as a tournament organizer, you have to understand that that's how communities go. And the first thing that you have to do is that if you make a mistake, you have to own up to your mistake. And I think that was DreamHack failed to do at the beginning, which was they made a mistake that had it been at a different time or with a different team or had encountered with a different reaction from the players or manager, it might have been something that would be forgotten. But unfortunately, it didn't, and it scaled up. And instead of they tried to fix a mistake, but they didn't fix it properly to the community's eyes. And that kept on exacerbating things. So if we go back into kind of like recap the whole storyline, DreamHack was organizing DreamLeague. They started last year with the kickoff season, then we did this year early the season 1. And then this year they were going to season 2, and by a decision they decided to do it without our involvement in the production, which is fine, but like there were reasons, so it's understandable. The problem that they had is that, you know, DreamHack, like how many people work at DreamHack, right? It's like 15, 20, something like that, right? And people were overworked because DreamHack is also doing so much stuff. So that month they were doing Stockholm, they were doing Moscow, and they, I guess, underestimated the amount of time that it would take them to properly plan a league based on their previous experiences, where they were like, okay, we're coming here, we're going to do a league, and it's DreamHack and everyone wants to play. Unfortunately, the climate has changed, the environment has changed, and they came to the teams with a couple of weeks' notice.
Yeah.
And teams were like, well, we're sorry, but I mean, normally you have to schedule 1-2 months in advance because now we have 5 tournaments at the same time.
Especially in a scene like Dota as well.
I dare you to go at any time at Dota and just like try to find a moment where there's not a tournament going on. It's like 24/7 tournaments, right? So the teams understandably were concerned, and still because of the good reputation that DreamLeague has over the last 2 seasons, they bent over backwards to try to accommodate, and they did. And then these teams that were not directly invited, because the thing is that teams that were invited were teams that qualified from last season. Then that also might have been questionable by the community because after TI, a lot of teams changed. And the concept of keeping, like for example, I'm going to put someone on the spot, like keeping Fnatic, that had a team before TI, and then after TI, 4 of their 5 members disbanded and just went to other teams. It was questionable that Fnatic still had a spot when they didn't really even have a team.
Yeah.
So community questioned that, and that's what it starts. It's like you create community saying, what's wrong with, like, this doesn't look right. And all it took was for one miscommunication between an admin and a manager about a game being played, where the manager understood that the game was going to be postponed, and the admin understood that they didn't want to play the game and it was to be a death loss. So out of all that thing, which was solved the next day because the game was still played the next day and postponed, there was a kind of like a snowball of small things that became bigger and bigger. And again, it was not because they were big things, but just because you see on top of Reddit one after the other, and people are like, I can't believe they're making these many mistakes. And that's why I agree with you, where like says maybe it was a little bit blown over proportion, but just the timing and the lack of response from DreamHack in a let's going to address this as a whole thing, rather than patch this and patch that.
But that's a very DreamHack way of dealing with things. I mean, they've got a saying, probably people, won't know this, but, whenever there's a controversy or whatever, their attitude is we kill it with silence. And that's actually, a lot of the time, a very good way to deal with it.
Hey, talk to Valve. They kind of do that as well, right? Valve, there's a chat. If you go to Steam Dev Days 2014, earlier this year, I think it was March, there is a great chat that Valve has about communication. And they address these kind of things like why sometimes you address drama with silence. They say that no communication is better than bad communication. And now that's a school of thought, and so I know some people disagree, and there are a lot of arguments to the contrary. But let's assume for a second that we believe that's true, which I do. It's actually a good thing because you do not communicate, but you make things happen by actions, not communication. DreamHack in this case kind of like tried to keep this, okay, we'll try to fix it, but they failed to come fast enough with a solution that would keep people calm and say, well, they weren't communicating, but now things changed. And that actually happened when they asked us to join the project and help project manage this. And I mean, to be fair, after that, things went much smoother. I took to myself to personally talk to all the players and managers and just solve the gaps in communications that there were. Because, let's be fair, sometimes communications were all done in a Skype group, and some people, because they missed the Skype, and maybe they shouldn't have, but it doesn't hurt to go personally to the person like, hey, there's a message in the Skype group, and you guys are playing tomorrow at 6. And sometimes because they forgot, like, oh, thank you very much. And that might solve so many problems, because maybe if that person didn't see that, they'd be like, oh, DreamHack, they didn't tell us, and they told us last minute. Or even like communication between manager and players. Managers sometimes they don't communicate as often with players as they would. So sometimes you see players saying like, oh, we found out about this today, that we're playing tomorrow instead of today. And they're like, oh no, we told your manager.
We told your manager 2 weeks ago.
Exactly, right? Yeah. So instead of just like putting the blame on the manager, which helps no one, you just go the extra mile and just like talk to the manager, talk to the player.
Yeah.
Right? And once that happened, things went a lot smoother. And then James put a lot of his effort to trying to make this thing so that the players, when they were here, because they were going to be here for 10 days and it's a huge investment of time, they were as happy as they could be. So he created, took it to himself to create a goodie bag. So we got the normal, you know, like hoodies and shirts and stuff like that, but also little details that kind of they remember. So for example, we got them transit cards for a week so that they could go wherever in Stockholm. We got them cinema cards to all the players so they could go and watch 1 or 2 movies whenever they wanted, because we knew they were going to have them some free days in between. So if you're going to be bored, well, might as well just go to a movie. And stuff like when they went to get food at the venue, James would come literally, and I'm not joking, with 4 restaurant menus and be like, okay, these are 4 restaurants, what do you want? And the players will be like,
sounds like you should work in hospitality.
I know.
Yeah,
well, it is really important. So he gets all the things, and then he goes and picks everything, and everyone gets to eat what they want to eat. And I mean, you wouldn't believe how much that actually makes a difference. And sometimes it's funny because this is not the first time that this happened. We did this at a Hearthstone event before, and it's funny because every time sponsors or organizers are concerned about how much is this going to cost, right? Like it's a food is expensive. When you make a budget, like you would be surprised how much money goes into food when you do something like that. But with the Hearthstone event, like at our house, it wasn't our event, but it was at our house, and we were helping with like moving people around and stuff. And I'm gonna name a name, but just because it's a nice thing. Amas, Hearthstone player, you heard of him?
Of course,
big streamer, right? He comes, and when we're asking what they want to eat, we're doing exactly the same thing. He's like, oh, I want sushi and I want a pasta, right? And he wants like 2 full dishes. And like someone from production was kind of looking at like, this cheeky bastard. He wants like, and we were looking at like, that's such a primitive mentality. If the price of a person's happiness is a plate of sushi, go fucking buy the plate of sushi. And that makes a whole, like, this guy was happy because he got what he wanted. At the end of the day, what would you spend, like 10 euros more?
He's such a thin guy. I can't believe he ate sushi and pasta.
He ate the sushi and the pasta.
Wow.
He was really hungry.
Yeah, where does he put it?
I don't know. Maybe fast metabolism, who knows, right?
Rapid metabolism.
Yeah.
Well, look, just on a serious note, just to rewind a little bit, like, you know, you're one of the faces of Dota, for me anyway.
Right.
I'm sure many people would agree with that. And, you know, you're very distinctive in your fashion. I know the game means a lot to you.
Yeah.
So, and you know, you've been a big part of, you know, DreamLeague and it being successful. So when you saw things like people saying let's boycott it, and you know, people were being very disparaging about what happened in the aftermath of these events, how did that make you feel personally? Because I know you've come in and fixed everything.
Yeah.
But for, you know, you still might be associated with that negativity.
Well, I mean, it's things that happen, and it's I would say an occupational hazard. But believe it or not, I am very pro community saying, okay, we don't like this, we might as well boycott it, right? And in the end, we're doing things first for the players because it's their livelihood, and second for the community because if they don't enjoy it, then there's no one to watch the players, then there's no tournaments, right? And like everything else comes third. So if people think, okay, this is not what we want to see, this is not the kind of thing that we want to see in our scene, they're perfectly entitled to do so. And in the end, if boycotting, it's their choice to watch or not to watch. So if they decide we should not watch it, then you can't say, oh, these fools don't understand, like we're doing real entertainment and we're like doing a studio, blah, 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 and like, it just doesn't work that way. Sometimes it's easy to lose focus, and because you have something that you put either you put a lot of effort or you put a lot of money into, you're like, people should be watching this, I don't understand how people don't. But in the end, they're the judges, right? So when I see that, I put myself in their shoes, and I'm like, well, I understand, and if they feel that this is something that they do not want to see, then we're doing something wrong, we need to change it. And there's been talks forever and ever about a players' union for Dota 2, right?
Yeah.
It's something that eventually will come into shape. I mean, it's just a matter of time, a matter of finding someone that wants to invest the time and responsibility into gathering groups of teenagers into agreeing into a union, which, I mean, everyone wants to do it, but at the same time, they're all too busy doing their work, right? But we were talking with a lot of players while this was happening. And players' unions, they mostly want to make sure, the whole idea of this is they want to make sure that they play in tournaments that are fair in terms of they give them the right time, that they give the right prize pools, that they
actually
do not
pay the prize pools.
Pay the prize pools, right, and in time as well, and that just like, that they get something out of the tournament that they're happy with. And we were talking with some of the players, and even me and James were saying, if the players' unions were to exist right now, what happened with DreamLeague would be the exact same type of thing that they would make an example of. And every player would be like, we're dropping out of this. So in a way, it's happy that we just got in time and fixed things when we could have the time. And I'm pretty sure that you can go to any player that came here and ask them if they enjoy the event, and they will be super ecstatic about it. So in that sense, mission accomplished. I think we haven't got to the viewers that DreamHack was originally expecting with the league. A lot of players were initially disappointed and decided not to go back to the product, but that's fine. That's fine. I mean, again, when you make a mistake, you pay for it somehow. And all you can do is make a great product, and if the players are happy, and if the people that actually decided to tune in, even though all the mistakes happened, are happy, then next time, it will come season 3, and people will be like, oh, it's DreamLeague again. People will be like, oh, weren't these fuckers that fucked up last time? And they'll be like, no, but they were doing that. And the same community and the same players, by agreeing to play this tournament, will prove the point that it's something worth watching. And then you get the viewer back.
So you talked about player unions. You probably is not going to want to talk about this. That's fine. But I'll ask while I'm here. I don't often get to do any Dota interviews because it's not my it's not my game.
You hate Dota.
Well, I find the community to be strange.
It is tricky.
Yeah, it's like tricky. I see things and I think we should totally get upset about this, and everyone's like, yeah, you're just trying to drama whore it, and I'm like, what? That's a real thing. And then it's something like Dietide, and it's like, let's burn this, let's burn the city to the ground. It's like, really, what? So I can't figure it out. I think that's why I struggle with it. But anyway. Obviously, there's all these rumblings at the moment about a union, which is, of course, the Good Game Agency, and the Alex Garfield kind of controlled operation, and they're bringing more Dota teams under the umbrella. And there's nothing official out there about it at the moment, but it's kind of being billed like a team union.
Well, I mean, right now, Team Tinker, Alliance, and EG are Good Game Agency teams. There's nothing else confirmed. But I was actually kind of like interested in this because let's take the moral compass out of the things, and let's not say if something is good or bad, right? But when you have a person creating a system where they have a lot of teams, given that the international is the main cash cow for tournaments, it is very interesting as a business model to capture as many teams as possible and kind of play the horse race when you own the most horses. Because getting a horse, like, I'm pretty sure that getting Alliance to win TI3 injected a lot of money into the agency to allow them to get more teams. And if they get 3 teams out of top 8 next time, they will, like, it's an ever-growing game where you just, by owning all the horses, you are guaranteed a lot of money, and you can put a lot of money into the scene where people cannot compete. Now you can say, well, everyone could do that. So in a sense, it's a way of an open market. But Good Game Agency definitely have the head start. Now again, I say I will remove the moral compass because just the sole idea of doing this doesn't have any negative connotations in itself, rather than the old saying that power corrupts, But in a world where people involved in Good Game Agency are genuinely caring about the players, what you're creating is an environment where players that are playing for the Good Game Agency are probably getting better salaries than they would everyone else.
True.
So
I think that's one of my concerns, though, is that the service. Like for me, when you bill yourself as a union, and I think that's
Right.
the route they will go down, and that's how they'll refer to themselves. I think it can't just be about money. You know, I've worked as a trade union representative. And it's about welfare and things like that, and this seems to be a lot of talk about the finances. For example, there's talk of people under the umbrella of Good Game
Right.
saying to tournament organisers, we want a share of the spectator ticket sales,
Right.
or we won't come to your tournament, all of us, all of the teams,
Yeah.
or we want a share of the streaming revenue, or we won't attend, all the teams. And I think that's, fighting for a better deal for players is potentially a noble cause. That sounds a little bit cynical to me.
Yeah, I mean, it's tricky because when you talk about those things, are things that benefit the players and the team at the same time. And I want to quote, I'm going to say this because this was in a public interview. Charlie Young, he's manager of EG. Yeah. He said in an interview something that I found really interesting, which was every time a manager or a team engages in a negotiation with a player, it's an adversarial situation. And when you say that, I mean, it strikes me as really interesting because, of course, I know why he said that, and I understand that players want more. And one of the cases is, for example, Team Secret, one of those teams that are always kind of like trying to see. And Papi said this in an interview as well, that they feel unhappy with how things are right now, and they feel that the scene should grow more in terms of what players earn. But I am slightly concerned that you think of the interaction with players as adversarial, and then you want to represent them.
Yeah.
So this is my gut feeling. I have no information about this. I'm not sure if Good Game Agency is the right avenue for players to create a player union, or rather they would create a team union, which is not the same thing.
Not the same thing, exactly. But I think on top of that as well, I mean, there's people within that organisation that actually have a history of not adhering to the rules themselves. They don't simply believe the rules apply to them. Well, if you're representing people under your umbrella, you need to know the rules so you don't lead them down the wrong path, so they're not liable.
Of course, yeah.
So,
no, as advisors, I think they're probably the best advisors that they can find on the scene. But I think that players, in their perspective, they would feel much more comfortable if the union was led by someone that does not have interest of the teams in mind. And that is just like something of what players think. So we'll see what happens with that. As I said before, I'm sure it's going to happen. Right now, a team union doesn't exist officially, but there's a lot of concerns about teams, and there's many tournaments where teams have said, we want this, or this, and we're not going. So that, in a sense, exists right now.
Yeah.
It just doesn't have a name.
Well, Valve have tried to defend player rights as well. Like, look what happened just before the international with the Fnatic
situation. Yeah, that as well. And that was a quite interesting one. But again, it's like, to Valve, they see things like players first, team seconds, right? And that's why Valve is great for that kind of thing, but at the same time, Valve has this policy that they don't have an esports team.
Yeah.
They really don't. I mean, the closest thing to an esports team is the people from the secret shop that goes to all the events and just sell stuff, right? So while they interact with esports, they don't have people that are 100% dedicated to this, and as that, they would not want to, probably, I'm pretty sure they would not want to have any kind of union or plans for the community like that. Which is, at the same time, a shame because they would be able to do it really great. But I respect the idea of let's keep ourselves uninvolved and see how the best person for that job will emerge rather than we authoritarianly, I don't even know how to say that, in an authoritarian way, say, bam, this is us, and we are doing this, and this is how we're doing it because we are the owners of the game. And if you don't like it, don't play our game, right? So. I feel that there's a lot of openness involved in this, but until players figure out what they want, and until teams figure out what they want, until tournaments figure out what they need to do to make everyone happy, we'll have to wait and see what happens.
So even though I said I associate you with Dota, which is absolutely right, given your experience, I know you've been doing a bit more in other games. You know, we've talked about Hearthstone just before we started the interview, and I know you've been watching some of the games here. So, are we likely to see you kind of branch out and start maybe being, the Bruno we know from Dota in other games?
No, I wouldn't say I would branch out. Like I have a lot of kind of like personal investment in Dota 2, and I really enjoy the game, and I would never get bored of it. But it's kind of an inevitability that when you're in esports, the more you are, the more you get to know people. So let's say I was at TI2 and it was my first time there and I knew no one, and I get to know the casters, right? Because that's the first people you interact with. And then after a while you do a couple tournaments and then you get to meet the players and get to know the players of Dota 2. And then you start going to multi-esports event like DreamHack. And then naturally you start like talking to other people. So after 2 years in these, I find myself just like going to CSGO and say hey to the NIP guys and just like having a beer with them. And they go to Hearthstone and tell Frodan and like, well, what have you been up to, man? So I do think that it's very interesting for esports to interact with themselves more. With that in mind, that's what I want to create, which is the viewers already, there's a minority that hardcore follow a game and everything else is horrible, right? But most of the people, they just watch some of these and they watch some of that, and they might have a preference, but esports is like a thing. Like I've never heard someone in sports saying, oh, basketball sucks, American football rules. It's like, you like basketball, I like American football,
exactly.
That's fine. Like,
I've been saying this for years though, the tribalism in esports is what's really held it back.
It is.
But even to the point where it's like, you know, even the same game, but like the earlier version or the sequel.
Oh, yeah.
So StarCraft, Brood War, man. No, SC2, Counter-Strike, 1.6, Source sucks. You know, it's like, guys, like seriously. But what I'm starting to see more and more of is, you know, for example, top of the League of Legends subreddit is a link to the Counter-Strike tournament saying this is the equivalent of the Counter-Strike Worlds, let's go show them some support. Right. We've already had record numbers, we've gone past 300k already in the groups, you know, like incredible numbers for Counter-Strike. And that's what esports has needed, the fact we've been fighting with each other, thinking we're rivals when of course we're not. It's really held the same back for years.
And I sometimes kind of like understand the simple thought process, which is like, for example, with Dota or League or like, I think that's the example because most of the other titles or most of the other genres only have one title, but MOBA has a couple, right? Yeah. So it's like my MOBA is better than your MOBA because of the fear that if your MOBA succeeds, mine will die. Yeah. And I think Dota 2 and League have proven that they can coexist perfectly, right? And after like it's been proven, a little bit of that rivalry was kind of lost right now, and Dota 2 supports League, League supports Dota 2.
Yeah, well, I noticed that last Worlds for League. Yeah.
So in that sense, the community are doing this great job, and they figure out for themselves that it's time we figure it out for ourselves as well. So ourselves as casters, as personalities, as people involved in the league, in the esports in general, I figure, well, it might be a nice experience to just like go to other esports, not to say. And I mean, there's nothing wrong with, for example, if Artosis wants to like switch to Hearthstone one day and just drop StarCraft 2, and something like that are completely fine. But what I want to approach is another angle, which is like someone that is clearly representing one game, as is my case with Dota 2, can go to Hearthstone and just like enjoy the game and sit with people there and just bring experience. And hopefully some of the Dota people will go and see Hearthstone and be like, oh, wow, look, this is actually a cool game, just because they know that I'm there. And maybe some people that are from Hearthstone, maybe like, hear this guy, who's this guy? And they get to see a little bit more of Dota 2, and it's a win-win for both communities, right?
Yeah, well, I'm noticing it more and more, like, you know, the last few, I say the last few, you know, you go back 3-4 years, you go with DreamHack, you know, you get your Hearthstone, well, not Hearthstone, but, you know, you get Counter-Strike players over here, StarCraft players over here, and everyone just sits, and it's like being at an awkward school disco, you know? No one wants to get up and dance first, right? And it's like, now everyone talks to everybody else, you know? Yeah. I think almost the streaming's played a big part in that as well. Like, when you go to watch something on Twitch, you know, and your League of Legends is there, Counter-Strike's doing well today, I wonder what's going on. I'll click on it and watch it, you know? It creates this idea that we are part of something, you know, that's unified. Yeah, absolutely. And again, it's Twitch, it's Twitter, it's all these easy ways for us to communicate with each other, even when we're not around. Like I don't know, just like sometimes I watch, let's say, StarCraft 2, and someone does well that I kind of know, and I like cheer for them, like, hey man, great job, you know. And that drives a little bit of the Dota 2 community, like, oh, you know, we follow StarCraft, oh, this guy's cool, yeah, and they just like go and check out what he did. And it's a lot of stuff like that. I got a lot of Hearthstone players saying, oh, Bruno, I'm coming like to DreamHack, so I hope to see you there, you know?
So it's really nice that we have all these opportunities to just create this quick communication, which in a standard communication point of view seem meaningless. It's like if you look at communication 50 years ago, oh, this guy just sent you a line of message that says looking forward to see you. That means nothing. But in today's world, it's just like such a powerful tool that the bonds are created even before actually bonding with the people. So in that sense, right now we're more connected than we expected to be, which is a nice thing.
Yeah. So look, I've taken up more than enough of your time, and I'm sure you're a very busy man, as we established right at the start of the interview. But just quickly, for all the Bruno fans out there, where can we see you next? When are we going to see some of your lovely content? And if I've never seen you before and I wanted to follow you, how would I do it?
Well, you can follow me on Twitter at StatsmanBruno. If you want to find me, I'm a hard man to catch. I don't stream myself personally.
You're very, inconspicuous.
I just try. No, actually, this is actually good. If I come to DreamHack not wearing a suit, no one will recognize me.
Really?
I'm a ninja.
I don't believe that.
People focus so much on the suit that they forget about everything else. As of what events I'm going to be doing, I'm going to be doing something in the future, but it's not been announced yet.
Secret event.
You'll have to just tune to every single tournament there is until you find me in one of them.
That's a lot of them.
Yeah, that is a lot of them. But yeah, no, I'm around. I'm around the scene, and if you follow me on Twitter, I'll tell you when things happen. But that's good. It's good to be around. It's a good scene.
Well, look, it was great to finally get to interview you, and enjoy the rest of the event.
Thank you very much.
And to everybody out there, as I said, there was the mighty Bruno. Definitely follow him. He's a great guy. He's even more flamboyant on Twitter than he is on his broadcasts. We're going to take a quick break in the Twitch TV lounge, but don't go too far. We're going to have more interviews like this one from here at DreamHack Winter.